Hi, just finished my workout, so I thought this is the best time to make a video. So today we are going to cover chapter 15, I guess. No, chapter 16. Chapter 16 we are going to cover from the PT manual 5th edition. So chapter 16 is all about safety precautions. What are the precautions that personal trainers should be taking in case there is an emergency in the gym or some kind of problem with your clients? What are the steps that you should be taking? And yeah, so that's what we are going to cover. So I'm going to directly take you to my notes and I'm going to explain everything via my notes. Feel free to take screenshot if you want, or you can purchase these very notes that I'm going to show you. You can purchase this from me in an easy PDF format. All right, chalo, let's go. Chapter 16. So this chapter is a little long, guys, and it is not like extremely important or something, but it is there, so it's better you just study. So I'm not going to explain each and everything in detail. I'm just going to walk you through my notes, and I'm wherever necessary I'll probably explain a little bit. Yeah, it's not that important chapter, but it's better to know all these things and have a good idea, and to be safe, be prepared for the exam. So we start with emergency assessment. Primary ABCs. So ABCs, you might get some recall questions on these. What are the ABCs? Airway, breathing, and circulation. These are the first three things that you should look for in a client if that person has fainted or is showing some signs of panic attack or something like this. These are the first three things that you should be checking as a personal trainer. Airway, whether that person is able to, whether there is proper airway, like whether their airway is being stuck with the tongue or something, whether they are able to breathe properly, and if there is enough circulation, like blood circulation and stuff like that. Perform a head tilt, chin lift to remove tongue from resting on the back of the throat and blocking airway. So usually when people prevent, they sometimes their tongue goes up and it blocks their airway. So you should perform a head tilt followed by a chin lift. So these pictures are given in the book. If you look at it, you'll understand. In case there's an absence of pulse, then in 10 seconds or less, so within 10 seconds, if you're seeing there's an absence of pulse, then you should start performing a CPR. Now you know why you have to do CPR before appearing for the ACE exam, right? So CPR is compulsory. You should be knowing how to perform a CPR. Secondary. So that was the first thing that you should be checking, ABCs. Second thing that you should be checking is if the person is unconscious but has stable ABCs. Like let's say the person is unconscious, then you should check whether their ABCs are stable. Then do a head-to-toe assessment. So these are the recall questions that they'll ask. A client has suddenly fainted while training with you, and so what are the first thing that you should be checking in that client? Or they'll be asking what are the second primary things that you should be checking in that client. So in that you have to answer head-to-toe assessment and not ABCs. ABCs is primary. Second thing that you should be checking is a head-to-toe assessment to look for any additional injuries, abrasions, cuts and stuff like that, if there's any bleeding happening and stuff like that. Now if the person is conscious, what you should be doing? They may ask you a question like this also. Let's say the person has fallen down but that person is conscious, then what you should be doing as a personal trainer? Then you should ask for their medical history. This may sound very absurd and weird, but this is true, guys. You have to ask them if they have any medical conditions like diabetes or hypertension or some kind of problem. You should know that. So you should ask them if they're conscious. If they have any known allergies, then signs and symptoms you should be looking for. If they can talk, then keep the conversation going to reassure them and monitor them. Usually when people have a panic attack or they just fall down, they are kind of in a shock, right? They're kind of nervous and scared. So you should keep the conversation going and reassure them that everything is fine, and keep monitoring them for any kind of symptoms. Now these are the questions that you will be getting, like in which case should you be calling 911 or the emergency, the ambulance and stuff, and in which conditions, under what circumstances you should be doing this, they'll be asking. So if there's a crime in progress, someone is getting assaulted in the gym, or people is threatening to assault a member, some member is having a fight with each other. Then second case is chest pain. If they're showing any kind of chest pain or discomfort or signs of a stroke, has a seizure, shock, problem breathing, does not respond to voice or touch, you're shaking them, you're calling them, but they are not responding. They suddenly cannot move a body part, kind of like paralysis. Client is seriously ill and personal trainer is unsure of what to do. Let's say the client is seriously ill and you don't know what to do, right? You are totally confused, you don't know what to do or what kind of condition is this. Even in that case, you should be calling 911 or EMS. Now
This is just an extra information. They are saying you should call via landline instead of cell phone if there is a choice, because there will be some kind of network problems when you call via cell phone, right? There must be call waiting and stuff like that. Landline is a better option. It takes EMS to arrive 7 to 10 minutes to arrive. It takes 7 to 10 minutes for EMS to arrive, and brain death can occur within 4 to 6 minutes. Hence CPR is very useful. Current CPR is required. Current CPR certification is required for all ACE professionals. This is the reason they make this mandatory, that you should be having CPR. 4 steps in the chain of survival. You might get a recall question like, what is the chain of survival and what are the 4 steps in it. One is early access, meaning early recognition of the emergency and immediate activation of EMS. EMS is emergency procedure, something like that. Yes, I don't remember, I forgot. So early access, early CPR to help the body maintain perfusion. Perfusion means blood flow, oxygen delivery and stuff like that. Early defibrillation, early advanced care. So just by heart these 4 steps, guys. These are the first 4 steps of chain of survival. So they may ask you questions like this: what are the 4 steps in the chain of survival? And then they will give these 4 in one sentence, and in the second option they'll be changing the order of these steps. So you'll have to choose the right order, guys. So first is early access, then CPR, then defibrillation, and then early advanced care. So remember the 4 steps in the sequence. Chances of survival declines by 10% every minute without a CPR. Every minute that goes without performing CPR, that chances of the survival keeps declining. So begin CPR within 2 minutes of the onset of cardiac arrest. So you may get a question like, what is the time span within which you should start the CPR in case of a cardiac arrest. These are just extra information, just go through it. AED, automated external defibrillation. So this is what they meant by this early defibrillation, AED. This is used to convert VF back to normal rhythm. VF is ventricular defibrillation. It is the most common rhythm during a cardiac arrest. So they may ask a recall question like, what is the most common rhythm during a cardiac arrest? The answer is ventricular defibrillation, or VF. So these are all just point format that I've written down, guys. So I've made these notes from the book as well as from the practice test papers that I've attended. AED will not shock a victim if a normal heart rhythm is found. So even if that person has a normal heart rhythm, it's not going to shock them. AED must never be used on a person who is conscious. This is common sense, guys, but still you need to know all these things. Breathing or has a pulse. If the person is able to breathe and if that person has a pulse, you must not perform AED. AED in infants under 1 year old. The cardiac arrests are due to respiratory problems, so never use AED on them. So these are all extra information, guys. You can just go through these. What is dyspnea, difficulty and labored breathing? Causes are emotional stress, asthma, airway obstruction. If no chest movement or air movement around the mouth or nose, then personal trainer should give breaths. If no pulse is found, then they must begin CPR. So if you see no chest movement or air movement around the mouth or nose, then you should be externally giving them a mouth to mouth or give them breaths. If no pulse is found, then of course you have to start CPR immediately. So I'm going a little fast, guys, because the notes are very lengthy. I don't want this video to extend more than 1 hour. So feel free to take screenshots wherever necessary. They're just saying, what is asthma? This is a chronic inflammation of the airway. If client has asthma exacerbation during exercise, so let's say you are training a client who is an asthma patient and they are suddenly having an asthma attack while you are training them. In that case, what you should be doing as a personal trainer? So this is important, guys. You should reduce the exercise intensity immediately and allow the client to take his or her rescue medication. So in exam, they'll try to confuse you by giving the answer as, terminate the exercise immediately. So that is not the answer. The right answer will be, you should reduce exercise intensity first and then allow the client to take his or her rescue medication. So I know the common sense says that you should terminate the exercise immediately, but as per ACE, they are saying you should reduce the exercise intensity first and then allow the client to take his or her rescue medication. So remember this. What is EIA? There is something called exercise induced asthma. or EIB, exercise induced bronchospasm. So exercise induced asthma develops during exercise at 80% or more of 1 RM. That's the reason you should not give them 80% of 1 rep max type of intensity for asthma patients. So remember this number, guys. This EIA is generally triggered when you make the client exercise at 80% or more of their 1 rep max. EIA occurs usually due to loss of heat, so breathe through nose or scarf to warm and humidify air. Now this is the protocol that you need to be following as a personal trainer when you are dealing with asthmatic clients. Prolonged warm up and cool down. Have the client do short bouts of exercise followed by rest instead of continuous exercise. Atherosclerosis or CAD, cardiovascular disease. Coronary artery disease. God, these names are so confusing. Narrowing of artery due to plague. Fat, cholesterol, calcium deposits, all of these things can lead to plaque, which can narrow the arteries of your heart, which can lead to coronary artery disease or atherosclerosis. So these will be sticking to the walls. So risk factors are smoking, high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, physical inactivity, etc. When plaque builds up in arteries and prevents blood flow to heart, chest pain called angina pectoris occurs. This may be mistaken as heartburn or indigestion. So trainers must recognize the signs even if the client is in denial. Immediately call 911. This is a very good sign that you will see before an attack happens. A radiating pain in jaw, neck, shoulder, typically left arm since heart is on the left side of the chest. Nausea, cold sweat, lightheadedness may also occur. So these are the signs that you should be looking for. So remember this point, guys. Radiating pain in jaw, neck, shoulder. Remember this sequence. There will be a radiating pain that will start at the jaw, progress towards your neck and then shoulder, and typically the left arm, the left shoulder, and towards the arm. Syncope. What is this? This is called fainting. Temporary loss of consciousness due to lack of blood flow to the brain. Violent coughing can cause syncope due to rapid change in blood pressure. So some people you have seen, they'll be coughing violently, right? My dad had this, like whenever he used to cough very violently, he would often faint. So we used to get scared, like what's happening? So violent coughing, especially in men, can cause syncope due to rapid change in blood pressure. Nausea, lightheadedness, sweaty palms, visual grey out are the signs before fainting. So before you faint, these are the signs that you generally tend to experience. So what you should be doing as a precaution. So all these safety measures is what you need to understand in this chapter, guys. What you should be looking for in this chapters. You don't have to know in depth about the conditions, but you need to know that if the condition occurs, what you should be doing as a personal trainer. Have the client sit or lie down to avoid fainting. Drink plenty of fluids to maintain blood volume. I have written painting by mistake, guys. It's fainting. Stroke. Stroke is not a heart attack. It is something that occurs in the brain. Many people think stroke is a heart attack. Ischemic strokes, 80% of all strokes are ischemic strokes, are usually caused by atherosclerosis and blockage in a vessel. Then we have hemorrhagic strokes. God, just pronouncing it is so difficult. 20% of all strokes are a result of weakened vessel rupturing and bleeding out into the surrounding tissue. So these are not that important, guys. This is just for your knowledge. They're not going to directly ask you what is ischemic stroke, what is the difference between ischemic and hemorrhagic stroke and stuff like that. So don't worry. Warning signs of a stroke. This is, of course, you need to know. Victim's speech is slurred. So they might give you something like this. A client is training with you and suddenly that client, you are observing that the client's speech has become slurred and the face has become droopy. So what do you think this client is experiencing? And in the options, they'll probably give stroke, they'll probably give fainting, they'll probably give syncope, they'll probably say that the person is having a heart attack or cardio CVD or something like that. But the right answer will be stroke. These are warnings of a stroke, guys. That's the reason you should be knowing all these things. They might ask you confusing questions like that. So while walking, their balance is off. They are almost walking like a drunkard. Severe headache, vision is lost or partially lost. One side is weak or numb. These are the signs, warning signs of a stroke. They are about to have a stroke, which occurs to the brain, mind you. Note, If left hemisphere of brain is affected, then facial droop on the left side will happen and weakness and paralysis will happen on the right side. If back of the brain is affected, then it can impair vision. Personal trainer should immediately call EMS. So in all of these situations, what should you be doing as a personal trainer? You should be calling EMS, period. Transient ischemic attack. These mimics the symptoms of a stroke but causes only temporary disability. Just remember the word transient, guys. The word transient means it will change. Like they say beauty is transient. It doesn't stay consistent, it keeps changing. Similarly, transient means it's a temporary thing. It's a temporary disability. But the symptoms are pretty much same as that of a stroke. So how do you know the difference? These symptoms usually last less than 1 hour and are relieved within 10 to 15 minutes. They should receive medical treatment to determine the cause. 1/3 of people who have TIA, that is transient ischemic attack, will later have a stroke. Maybe many will happen within the next month itself. So you have to be careful. They should take immediate medical attention. Diabetes, I've already made a video on this, so I'll not be explaining this. You can just take a screenshot and make some notes of your own if you want. So in this, the video that I've already made, I'll put a link in the description. In that, I had somewhere mentioned that you should take 15 grams of carbs, but that is as per recent studies. But ACE says you should be providing them with 20 to 30 grams of carbs in case they are having a hypoglycemic attack. Hyperglycemia, they are saying that aerobic activities, aerobic exercise and resistance training can help lower body's resistance to insulin, which means this is good. These two exercises are good for people with hyperglycemia. However, if it is high intensity, then it can actually trigger hyperglycemia, and I've explained why in another video that I made. I'll put a link to that video also in the description. Then we have peripheral neuropathy. This is a numbness in the feet and hands. It causes usually diabetes. So for these people, what is the training protocol that you should follow? Give them non-weight bearing activities like biking and swimming, etc. Biking, stationary biking and stuff like that. They are non-weight bearing activities. They don't involve you to use a lot of weights or load your joints with a lot of weights. Avoid running and jumping activities. Pay close attention to footwear, because we already saw in that previous video that I made that once these people get injured, it's very difficult for them to recover from injury, especially cuts and bruises. What is heat stress? Blood that becomes heated flows to the skin where vasodilation occurs, and sweating, this is called sweating. Sorry, I am myself not able to read my handwriting sometimes. This is called sweating. Sweating begins. Diuretics, antihistamines, antidepressants put stress on body's thermoregulatory system, causing profuse sweating. So these are all extra information, guys. They won't really ask you questions from here. They'll just ask you what is the in case there's an emergency, what you should be doing as a personal trainer. So feel free to take screenshots and just know what all these things are actually. Difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Generally they'll have sweaty skin, heat exhaustion. For heat stroke, there will be dry skin. So I think I have explained all of these things in another chapter while we were studying the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke, stuff like that. I think it was injuries chapter. Should remove as much clothing as possible in case of a heat stroke. Cool the body immediately using ice packs, wet towels, etc. and transport them to the emergency room immediately. So this paragraph is what you should be studying as a personal trainer, and what you might get asked in the exam. Heat syncope. Syncope means fainting, I guess. So happens immediately after exercise due to blood pooling in the legs. Can resume exercise the very next day if they are asymptomatic, if they have no symptoms. Make sure you remember this word, acclimatized. They might ask a question like, how many days does it take to get acclimatized to heat? Acclimatized means to get used to heat. 10 to 14 days. In general, this is a question that I got asked in the exam, so remember to study this. This is also there from your nutrition chapter in Essentials of Exercise Science. You should be generally drinking 500 to 600 ml of water 2 hours prior to exercise, 200 to 300 ml every 10 to 20 minutes during exercise, and 450 to 675 ml for every 0.5 kg of weight lost after exercise. Then we have something called cold stress. Feel free to take a screenshot. Now this is the point that you should be studying in this topic as a personal trainer. Keep the person lying down to prevent drop in their blood pressure, and call for medical help immediately in case there is some cold stress. In case of frostbite, what you should not do is more important. Never massage the area or warm with heat pad, stove or fire. These are things that you should be avoiding. Remove tight jewelry and clothing. Frostbite is something that happens when you are exposed to extreme cold climates. In areas like Canada and stuff where it's extremely cold, these things can happen. Seizures. So take screenshot and go through this, but what you really need to know is this. So remember, ACE might try to confuse you by saying that a client is experiencing a seizure and what you should be doing in that situation, and in the option they'll say place an object in the victim's mouth so that they don't clutter their teeth and injure their teeth or something like that. So that might make sense, but that is actually wrong. The right answer is this: never place anything in the victim's mouth or restrain him or her. Don't try to restrain that person. We often see people in India, especially in our country, people doing this. Every time someone has a seizure, we try to place some object in their hands, we try to restrict them, or we try to put something in their mouth so that they don't clutter their teeth and stuff like that. So these are things that you should avoid. You should never do this. Clear the area. Place a towel under the victim's head because they'll be banging their head against the floor, right, when they have seizures. So for that, these are things that you should know as a personal trainer. Have someone call EMS. After the seizure, check ABCs as usual, and if they are not breathing, then you should start giving them CPR immediately. If seizure lasts more than 5 minutes or multiple seizures occur without the person regaining consciousness in between, then as a personal trainer you must call EMS immediately. Forget about all the first aid things. You should first call EMS if this happens. Unlike popular belief, contact sports is not gonna lead to seizures. Seizures are less likely to occur during an exercise. That's a good news. Now shock. What is shock or hypoperfusion? Perfusion means blood circulation. Hypo means less blood circulation. So hypoperfusion means less blood circulation. Blood not adequately distributed in the body. What are the symptoms? Cold, clammy skin, fast and weak pulse, nausea, thirst, etc. In this case, what you should be doing, this is the thing that you should be noting over here. Feet should be elevated for better blood flow to the brain and heart. So have the victim lie down with their feet elevated, putting their feet on a higher surface, and then check their ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation, and cover the victim with blanket. Usually when they are in a shock, they feel a little cold and stuff like that. 4 types of shock. They are not very important. You can just read it for sake of knowledge. I've written trauma over here. This is bleeding, in case you're not able to understand my handwriting. Then we have soft tissue injuries. These are injuries to the skin, usually cuts and stuff like that. So you should, when that happens, when a client is working out and they get a cut, what should you do as a personal trainer? You should clean that area thoroughly by irrigating it with plenty of water. Apply a dry dressing. General primary treatment of soft tissue injuries is RICE: rest, ice, compression, elevation. Rub ice on injured area for approximately 20 minutes. Don't just put ice and remove. You should keep rubbing ice on that area for approximately 20 minutes. This is what ACE suggests. But some recent studies say that ice is not a very good idea. But we just have to follow ACE as of now to clear the exam. What are the types of skin cuts? Abrasion, incision, laceration, avulsion, puncture. Just know what all these things are. what is a fracture. There's something called closed fracture and open fracture. There is no break in the skin surface in case of closed fracture. In open fracture, there will be an open wound along with the fracture. You might sometimes even see that broken bone is protruding through the skin. These are extreme injuries. You should immediately call EMS. See, activate the EMS immediately. There's something called stress injuries. These injuries happen all the time. This is not very severe. So yeah, this is the point that you should know as a personal trainer, also from exam point of view. Don't move the fractured area. Don't try to move that area. If someone has fractured their elbow or their hand, you should not move that area or attempt to put weight on it. Remove or cut away clothing from the injured area to prevent contamination, especially if it's an open fracture. Apply gentle pressure to stop bleeding without disturbing the fractured site. Have the client lie down and then activate the EMS immediately. So that's the only point that you should be knowing as a personal trainer, both for your career as well as from exam point of view. Then we have the head injury. Sorry, I'm shaking a lot. I'm kind of a little hyper right now. Just finished my exercise maybe. Head injury. Concussion is a head injury that alters mental status. Occurs usually during contact sports. Blows to head can cause this. So contact sports doesn't lead to seizures, they can lead to head injuries and concussion. What are the signs of a concussion? I think this was asked, I'm not sure. Just know this. These are the signs of a concussion. Confusion, memory loss, asking the same questions repeatedly, nausea, headache, slow or slurred speech. I remember there was also a movie made on this, asking the same questions repeatedly. It was a Tamil movie, I guess. I think the name of that movie I don't remember. Anyways, Nadula, something like that. Anyways, those are the signs of concussion: asking the same questions repeatedly, confusion, memory loss, and something like that. A common misconception is that a loss of consciousness always accompanies after a concussion. So this is not necessary. Just because you had a brain injury or a brain concussion doesn't mean that you'll immediately faint. And if the consciousness is not lost, then the concussion isn't severe. This is a misconception. This is a myth. Unequal pupil size is an indicative of a serious head trauma. So if you're during contact sports, or if you're training a client kickboxing or something like that, if they experience something like this, then this is what you should be looking for. For any head trauma, personal trainer should check the ABCs and start CPR if necessary. This is the point that you should be remembering as a personal trainer. Also for exam point of view, assume a spinal injury and hence don't move. So anytime they are having any kind of head trauma, just assume that they might have a spinal injury also, and hence you should not move the client or the victim. If they can talk, assess their level of consciousness by asking them questions like the victim's name, etc. Now this is interesting. If a tooth becomes knocked out, right, especially like boxing and all that, since I was into kickboxing and stuff, this is something that was handy for me. Like, in case someone's tooth has become knocked out, the trainer should keep the tooth clean and place it in a milk. I know it's weird and absurd, like can't imagine you doing that, I know, but that's what ACE recommends, right? So you should be cleaning that tooth and place it in milk or salt water, or have the victim keep it in clean area. Keep it in check area, and see a dentist immediately to reimplant it. That's it. Next we have neck and back injury. Most common neck injury are cervical strain and sprain. Remember strain and sprain, guys. Strain is related to muscle, sprain is related to ligament. Remember that, lingam spa. Due to overstretching of neck muscles and upper traps. Ice massage for 8 to 10 minutes to relieve spasms. Cervical spine has 7 cervical vertebrae. These are all just information. This is what you should be knowing as a personal trainer and from exam point of view. Do not move the victim. If the person is experiencing a neck injury or a spine injury, you should not move the victim. Immobilize the head. Make sure that they are not able to move the head until EMS arrives, because if they move their head, then that injury can become worse, especially if it's a neck injury. And of course, check the ABCs: airway, breathing, circulation. If they are unconscious, this is what you should be doing. Use jaw thrust method. Previously we saw a head tilt method, that was in case of fainting. I don't remember the starting of this chapter we saw, but in case of a neck injury you should be using a jaw thrust method. This is shown in a picture format in the book. Take a look at it and you'll know what it means. So remember this. They might confuse you by asking you a question like, the client is experiencing a neck injury and as a trainer, and the client is unconscious, so what should you be doing as a personal trainer? So in the option they'll give, you should try to head tilt and chin lift. This is what you should be doing. So at that time it might make sense to you, but remember that's the wrong answer. The right answer is jaw thrust method instead of head tilt chin lift. Remember this, guys. You do this to open the airway so that they can breathe even though they are unconscious. If conscious, ask the victim to look straight ahead and not to follow trainer with his or her eyes. So if you are moving around, ask the victim to just keep the head straight and not to move their head, just to look at you. What do you do in case of a back injury? Herniated disc and bulging occurs between L4 and L5. Remember this, causing pain, weakness and numbness and tingling sensation due to nerve compression. This information is good. So what you should be doing if someone is experiencing a back injury, let's look at that, because that is what is important for us. So lifting weight with a slow controlled motion is best to lower the compression and shear force on the spine. Remember this point. Do lower back this is very important point, guys, that's why I've highlighted it. Do lower back exercise on a daily basis. So they may ask you in question, someone with a lower back issue, what frequency of training they should be following for better results. So they'll be giving in the option that they must train 7 days a week. So as a personal trainer you might think, oh my god, 7 days a week is too much. That's probably the wrong answer, but that's actually the right answer, because they have mentioned it clearly over here that if you have lower back problem, then lower back exercise, doing it on a daily basis and focusing on lower back endurance rather than lower back strength is going to benefit a client who has lower back problems or lower back injuries. I repeat, someone who has a lower back issue or lower back injury, they should be concentrating on lower back endurance, building the lower back endurance as opposed to lower back strength. So don't give them high 1 rep max kind of exercises. Instead give them high repetition, low intensity exercises for the lower back, and if possible make them do it on a daily basis, maybe even 7 days a week. Remember this point, guys. What are the other precautions that you should be taking? Keep objects close to body, bend at knees while keeping back straight, contract abdominals and leg muscles to assist the lift. Avoid simultaneous bending and twisting while lifting heavy objects. Maintain good posture when doing all activities of daily living. With that, chapter 16 is over, guys. If you want all of these notes in your hands, available in your mobile in an easy PDF format, just message me on Instagram and you can purchase all of this from me. I'm selling it at a very low price, guys, so don't worry. And you can contact me on Instagram. You'll find me on Instagram as athlete.sanju, SANJU. Thank you for watching, guys. All the best for your exams.